Okay, so conservation meeting, Tuesday, April 13th, meeting come to order. Just making sure the secretary's on. Can you chime in to make sure you're here?
I'm here, yep.
Okay, well, that's good. So what we're gonna do is, we usually handle the minutes first. We're gonna handle the minutes last for this meeting because the minutes are pretty extensive. At least that's what you told me they were. They don't look that extensive, but at the end of the meeting, we'll handle the minutes. So,
Hey, Doug,
yep,
I don't see that Marty and Henry are on yet. Just so you know.
Marty's on. I saw Marty's smiling face.
You did? Okay, I don't see
Yeah,
him.
I'm here.
Okay.
Henry's not gonna be able to make the meeting tonight.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, great. Okay, so the first thing on the agenda is the shingle mill project. This is kind of a continuation of past discussions. I don't think there's really any new news, but maybe Marty can take the floor. Let us know what's going on, if anything.
She's talking. Nobody's.
I think you're on mute, Marty. Marty, you're on mute. Oh,
There you
there you
go. So the actual 40B project. And
go. Yeah, I got one thing I need to do, Marty, first. I just got a reminder. So the board members in attendance are Doug Galumi, Ron, Virginia. Is Lorraine on? Lorraine, are you there?
Here I am.
Okay, good. Charlene's not on. She just had a surgery today. I don't think she's on the meeting, right?
No, she's not here.
Okay, so that's the board members in attendance. That's kind of a formality that we have to announce. So sorry to interrupt you, Marty. Go ahead.
no problem. And Virginia is abstaining.
That's right.
That's a good point. Thank you,
Yeah.
Marty.
So this is the proposed 40B project itself. The last piece of correspondence that they issued to the commission was our March 14th comment letter that summarized our comments on their latest submittal. It was February 2021 submittal. So our findings really, real high level findings were that the project plans didn't address your bylaw 25-foot no disturb requirements. And at the time, the ZBA still hadn't waived the wetlands protection bylaw. So therefore the commission can require that the plans and the project meets your bylaw requirements. So let me pull my letter in front of me.
I believe the zoning hearing was continued to sometime in June on that.
Okay, so then, so the commission can, basically require that they comply with your bylaw until that bylaw is waived or not. So the other item was that Henry Nover's review of their stormwater management design determined that it did not comply with the DEP stormwater regulations and standards. So therefore, the project can't assume the presumption that the work will protect the interests of the Wetlands Protection Act and bylaw. So at this time, until the project actually complies with stormwater stormwater regulations and standards, then we wouldn't advise the commission to issue an order approving the project.
Okay.
One big item that's missing from the plans that I think that the commission should inquire about is the sewer connection to the project. The one is not shown on the plan. So it's unclear how the project's going to handle waste disposal.
Okay. And we determined that a septic system was probably not viable for this project?
Yeah, the other thing that came to light between the first and the second review was the fact that there is an Zone A protective areas on the property. Basically, Zone A is an area around a stream that's tributary to a public water supply. And those Zone As, they're very restricted as to what you can do in a Zone A. One is that you can't put a stormwater BMP in a Zone A. You can't dispose of, waste in a Zone A. So our recommendations in our letter request that the applicant provide on their next set of plans, the boundary of all Zone As that are provided on the Mass GIS maps to see actually how much of the property is protected under the Zone A regulations.
Okay, great.
Yep. The other item is the vernal pool, the certified vernal pool that's on the site. Your bylaw boundary of a vernal pool is actually 100 feet from the depression. So the plans don't show that. So once that's on the plan, you'll see that there's quite a bit of work being proposed in your bylaw vernal pool boundary. So that will need to be, plans will need to be updated to show that. The other, we recommended that the streams be shown on the plans that are out there so that we can identify the actual resource area impacts. There's 3 culverts that are actually crossing the existing access road into the site right now. The proposed project actually will raise will actually widen and raise that access road quite a bit with retaining walls on both sides. So, so they really need to indicate better illustrate anyways how these retaining walls are going to be built with the proposed utilities coming in from Pond Street and the existing culverts that are underneath the road. And the profile are not really clear on that. And then the other high level comment that we had was relative to wildlife habitat. One being the access road coming in and the retaining walls that are going to be built. Once those retaining walls are built, there's no wildlife crossing that road. So we asked the applicant to take a look at how to mitigate that real loss of wildlife migration function that's currently happening on that site.
Okay.
We also had our wildlife biologist go out and take a look at the site, and he identified some areas where he feels there should be a 50-foot buffer zone left based on the quality of vegetation that's in that upland buffer, wildlife food source, and just an area in general that the wildlife are using. He emphasized in the letter that wildlife tend to migrate in the upland, not the wetlands. So once this site is, assuming, if the commission approved the current project before you, there really is no upland buffer left. So the upland buffer protection to the wetland in the interest that wetlands providing, one of them is wildlife habitat and protection of wildlife, and the other is protection of public water supply, really will be adversely impacted. So we recommended that at minimum the 25-foot upland buffer be provided, and in places the 50-foot buffer.
Okay.
So basically, we feel that the applicant has quite a bit of work to do to address your bylaw regulations as well as the state regulations before the commission can consider this project.
Okay. So on the roadway, I have a question. So there's wetland to both sides of the roadway at this point, basically up to the roadway, correct?
Correct.
So how could they possibly meet our 25-foot no disturb zone with widening the roadway.
Well, they can't. They can't. And relative to that, one of our comments was that, you know, they initially they showed no impacts to bordering vegetated wetlands.
That was my next comment.
Yep. And they came back with, you know,
Temporary.
ingredients that there's going to be some temporary impacts to the wetlands for the installation of that retaining wall that sits right on the wetland boundary. I went out to the site and there's some, you know, significant trees right along that wetland boundary that will need to be cut down. And they're only proposing to loam and seed the area once it's cut. And so that's not mitigation for the impacts to the BBW. They really need to take a look at look at that and propose some realistic planting in those areas. And I also asked them to get a DEP opinion on whether or not the alteration of wetlands for construction of that retaining wall will require a 401 water quality certification, because those wetlands are outstanding resource waters because they're tributary to a public water supply. So
Yep.
they added protection. I asked them it's their opinion that they don't have to file a 401 water quality cert. And, you know, I took a look at the regulations. It's really not clear to me that they're not, that they don't have to. I feel they do. So,
Okay. So that question's been asked of DEP,
Yes.
and we'll be expecting an
no,
answer
I
from
asked them, I asked them to provide a correspondence from DEP that
Okay.
agrees with their position, basically.
And that'll be forthcoming at some point, or?
We recommended that they provide that, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay. So I'm assuming the applicant's on the call here, correct?
Yeah, this is Mike Toohill for Conoco, from Conoco.
Okay, Mike. The floor is yours. Marty was just giving an update of where we were at, so it's your hearing, so take the floor.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Marty. We're working on all of those issues. We don't have answers to those tonight. And for that reason, we'd like to continue the hearing to your next meeting.
That's perfectly fine with us. So our next hearing is the second Tuesday in May, which if anybody has a date, that'd be helpful, but is that going to be enough time for you to work through the issues so we don't keep on?
May
dragging?
11th, Doug.
Okay, so the next meeting is May 11th, so that's basically a month. Is that going to be enough time for you to resolve a lot of these issues? Because I don't want to keep on dragging townspeople to the meetings if they don't need to come, if it's just
Yeah.
going to be a continuance.
I think honestly, we're going to be able to answer a number of the issues. We're not
Okay.
going to be able to answer some of the potential bylaw issues, because my understanding from what you just said is we're not meeting with the ZBA until after the May 11th meeting. And that the whole issue of whether the bylaw requirements apply to this project stay out in limbo until we have a decision from the ZBA. So we'll be able
So-
to come back with some of the material.
So, I mean, I have no problem with continuing this to May 11th. But with that being said, I mean, does it make sense to continue this until after the ZBA makes their decision?
Could I
For-
say something?
Not yet, Mary, you can't, no.
Can we for tonight continue to May 11th? And, you know, the week before, we can give the commission a heads up as to whether or not we're going to have enough material to make it worth your while. I think we will, because there are a number of technical issues aside from the bylaw buffers and some of the other issues. There are a number of other technical issues that we've been working on and we can bring into the commission.
Okay, I mean, that's fine with me. I just don't want to drag everybody to another meeting that's, you know, inevitably going to be continued again. But it's your hearing. It's perfectly fine with the commission to to continue this to May 11th. Let's
Okay.
just make sure there's some meat on the bone for May 11th, if you know what I mean.
Yes, I do.
And the other issue is, this is a public hearing, so if I continue this to May 11th, everybody's gonna come to the May 11th meeting. So, let's just, let's just make sure there's some meat on the bone for the meeting, that's all.
Right. Now, Carrie has to post that meeting 48 hours in advance. And so there could be if we decide not to come on May 11th, if we make that decision together with Marty that we're not coming on May 11th, that could be posted as part of your agenda for that May 11th meeting, letting people know that we're not going to be there.
I'm pretty sure the way the open meeting law works though is I have to notify people in this hearing when this is gonna be heard.
Okay.
And this is the last time they'll hear from me until that meeting.
Okay.
I mean, yes, the agenda will be posted. I will agree with you, but not everybody's going to read that.
Yeah.
People
I
are
agree.
going to attend this hearing and say, okay, well, then I have to come back on May 11th. And that's when they'll come back. So, I mean, again, it's fine to move it to May 11th. That's fine. I think that's probably our best bet. I just want everybody in the audience to kind of bear with this. This is kind of the way this process goes. There's nothing the board can do about this, and there's nothing the applicant can really do about this. So, so I'll take a couple questions from the audience, and then we will continue this hearing to May 11th. Mary, I know you had something, so go ahead.
I was just going to make a suggestion to make the next meeting after the zoning board of appeals meeting. That's going to be June 1st.
Well, that's kind of what I just said,
That gives
but
plenty of time- That gives them plenty of time to get their ducks in order.
I mean, that's kind of where I was going with
They
this.
won't
This is-
have their ducks in order until June. ZBA.
I mean, I agree with you, Mary, but this is not my hearing. This is the applicant's hearing, so it's really their choice when they want to continue to, not mine.
Okay, can I ask one other question? Is this about the pump test for the 3 wells?
We haven't got to that one yet. I think that's next, Marty, right?
That's next.
Yep. This is just the project itself, not the 48-hour pump test.
Okay,
Okay, so just confirming, Michael, that we're going to continue to May 11th. You good with that?
Yes.
Okay, so motion for the board to continue this hearing to May 11th?
Yes.
Okay, that's Ron. Virginia seconded. Oh, actually,
No.
Virginia didn't second. That's my bad.
Right here, Lorraine.
Lorraine seconded, and that's unanimous. So this hearing's being continued to May 11th. Okay, that's done.
Doug,
Yes.
can you clarify for the people in the audience, Marty's role for the commission? Because I think there's some confusion that she's working for Conoco.
Okay, so if we need clarification on this, Marty Nova works for Beta Group. Beta Group works for the town of Rockland only. That's about as clear as I can say it. She,
Thank
Beta Group has been hired to represent the town of Rockland as a peer review consultant on this project. They're being paid by the town of Rockland and they represent the town of Rockland. Is that good?
Yep.
Okay, good. And that also goes with Henry Nova. He's being paid by the town of Rockland. He represents the town of Rockland. He's not on the hearing tonight, but it's the same situation. Okay, moving on. All right, the 48-hour pump test. I believe we opened the hearing the last time for this.
We did.
Secretary, okay.
Yes.
So the floor is yours, Michael. Go ahead.
So at the last hearing, at the last meeting, we opened it up and we had discussion about the pump test. Marty had done a review of the application materials and those of intent application materials and came back with some questions on the protocol for the pump test. We discussed that at the last meeting, and the biggest issue, and you guys can jump in if you think there are other bigger issues, but I think the biggest issue was the fact that we had 3 piezometer staff gauges proposed. all three in wetlands, one of which was proposed to be located below mean high water in the vernal pool. And there was a lot of discussion about that and a bit of pushback from the commission and from Marty about the need to do that. So we agreed to move that piezometer outside of that wetland, still within the 25-foot buffer, but outside of that wetland area. We want to get that piezometer close to that wetland. So in case when we're doing the pump test, we have drawdown, we can see it. That's the purpose of having those piezometers out there. All three piezometer staff gauges, it's a nested piezometer and staff gauge. So piezometer measures shallow groundwater and the staff gauge measures surface water. All three of them are going to be installed by hand. We're going to walk in, the tubes are about 1 inch in diameter. The piezometer tubes are very small. So there's really no vegetation cutting or anything that needs to occur. It's probably less intrusive than going out and doing a test pit for a wetland delineation in a wetland system where you dig a hole. So we want to put in those three piezometers, run the pump test according to the DEP protocol, which we have sent in to the department, and they've approved the protocol. And some of the other comments were that we needed to provide some more refined plans, which I did. I sent those, unfortunately, they just got yesterday to Marty, so I know she hasn't had a chance to look at those in detail, showing the topography, the location of the wells, the zones around the well, the locations of piezometers, and the location of the discharge hose that's going to come out of the well and go into a discharge crib. One of the other things we discussed at the last hearing is we had proposed a straw bale with filter fabric with some gravel on the outside crib. And Marty asked that we also put core fiber rolls or compost socks on the downstream side, which we are going to do. So we've added belt and suspenders to that discharge point. That discharge point has to be away from the wells because you don't want to be pumping the water out of the wells and having it run right back to the wells. And obviously everything runs towards the wetland. So the discharge is in an upland buffer area that it'll eventually make its way down the slope towards the wetland. I did write a letter going over the points. I don't know whether you want me to share that, Mr. Chairman, or if you want me to show a plan or anything at this point.
Feel free to show a plan.
Okay.
That's perfectly fine with us.
All right.
Marty, is that good for you as far as where
Yeah.
you need to see?
Yeah, that's fine. I haven't even looked at the plans or any of his information.
Okay, well then we're gonna get a
Okay, so can you
Can I
see
get a
this
sneak
first?
peek?
Can you see this first plan?
we can, it's a little small, but
It's a little
It'll
small. The main thing is this is the survey plan, and the survey plans are in 4 sheets. I'm only going to show you the one sheet where all the action is happening on the site, but we did submit all 4 sheets of the survey plan. And one of the things that Marty asked for is that we have the plan stamped by a registered professional engineer, which we did. And it shows all of the buffers and shows all the wetland flags and the detailed topography on the site. So that's one plan that we were asked to provide. Another plan we were asked to provide is based on that plan I just showed you a minute ago. It's this one here and over there. Can you see it yet? Should be a new plan up on your screen.
not yet.
Not yet. Let me try it
Not yet.
again.
We can hear a commercial, but there it
Yeah,
is.
that's not me. So this is the second kind of plan that Marty had asked for. This one is if I can scroll down, let's see if we can do this. This one is stamped by a registered professional engineer from On-Site Engineering. On-Site is the engineer that did the pump test application to the DEP, did the pump test protocol design, and will be conducting the pump tests. So this plan is stamped by Susan, who's the registered professional engineer. So this is based on the surveyor's plan that I showed you a minute ago. This plan shows the locations of the wells here in the middle. It shows the locations of the 3 piezometers, one up here in the wetland, one down here in the wetland. And then we took the one that was here in the vernal pool and moved it up outside the vernal pool. And then it also shows the discharge line path, which goes just off the corner of this plan onto sheet 4. And that's, the crib is literally right up in here on sheet 4. So it shows the discharge lines going, excuse me, right up in here. It shows the discharge lines from the 3 wells coming to the crib up here. So this plan shows, where all of the physical elements are going to be located for the pump test on the site. And it's got the topo, it's got the resource area boundaries and the buffers as well. Stop sharing this one for a second and. No, that didn't work very well. So this is the memo that I wrote to Marty, going through her comments. We can just go through those quickly, if that's okay.
Yes, please.
The first was a question about abutters. I think we clarified this the last time, but I just wanted to put it in writing that, in fact, all the abutters for both parcels were notified, and that there was a legal ad put in the Patriot Ledger, and we had submitted copies of everything, the green cards and the Patriot Ledger tear sheet and everything to the commission.
I believe that
previously.
was addressed correctly.
Okay, so I just wanted to throw that in because that was her first comment. The second was that we should provide a stormwater checklist and report. This is not stormwater. This is a groundwater pump test. So the stormwater guidance, the stormwater checklist does not apply to a groundwater pump test discharge.
Mr.
third
Chair, can I
is-
comment on that, please?
You go right ahead.
Yes, please, Marty. Go
So,
ahead.
yeah, it just doesn't get lost in the shuffle. There's only 3 types of projects that are not subject to the DEP stormwater reg standards, and this isn't one of them. So the many of the standards don't apply to this project, but erosion and sediment control does, which is one of the standards.
So I agree that erosion and sediment control does.
Hold on,
what-
hold on,
Yep,
Michael.
so
Let's let Marty finish and then
All
you
right.
can rebut. I will
So
give you your time, I
it's-
trust you.
It's a very simple exercise to provide a checklist and a simple stormwater report, letter report that basically states, why particular standards don't apply, and then the ones that do apply, like erosion and sediment control, how that is being handled. And one of the items is, your discharge location. You can be, corralled with, compost filter tubes and whatever. So it's real simple exercise. This project does apply to the DEP regulations, stormwater regulations.
So
Okay.
I agree that it's something simple. We'll probably wind up having to do it, but I'm going to disagree that it applies because we are not, the top level is it has to be stormwater. And then you go down to the types of projects that don't have to comply with the stormwater regulation. At the top level, this is not stormwater. This is a groundwater pump test. And so it's very different than a stormwater discharge.
Michael,
it's-
how hard is this, how hard is this checklist to do?
I can have the engineer look at that. I'm not an engineer. I can have the engineer look at that. Most of them are pretty straightforward. I just
I
disagree
in-
because I don't think it applies.
mean,
And so you're making
just
us,
in an effort
you're making
to-
us jump through a hoop that we shouldn't have to jump through.
I mean, that's certainly not our intention, is to make you jump through hoops, and I hope that you don't have that opinion. We're just, this board, make sure we dot our i's and cross our t's, and that, that's the way we operate with every project that comes in front of us. And that's the reason that we hire Beta Group, is to make sure that that's done properly. So if it's in Marty's opinion that we need to do that, I can tell you that the board's gonna support that 100%. If it was something major that was gonna be a problem, then we could have further discussion, but it doesn't sound like it's gonna really be that big of a deal. So I just say we check it off the list and just call it a day. Does that sound fair enough to you?
Okay. I'm not going to win this one, so I'll bring this one back. The third comment was that the plan was not stamped by a professional engineer and land surveyor. And as I showed you, the plans now have been stamped by both an RLS and a PE. The fourth comment is, again, about the survey contours and other information. Everything is now on the existing conditions plan. This is strictly an existing conditions plan that we're working with for the pump test. We're not proposing about building anything. We're just testing the wells that are out there. The next comment is state map critical areas on site. And this is tied up with the Zone A ORW that we talked about in the previous hearing. What I made in the comments here is that the location of the ORWs are known on this site. If there are ORWs, they are the wetlands on the site and the streams on the site. And what we're doing is the location of the Zone A and the water supply wells doesn't have any bearing on the ORW. That's the purpose of the pump test, is to make sure that we're not having an adverse effect on the vernal pool and on the wetlands on the site. And so that's the primary purpose of running the pump test, is to make sure not only that you get the adequate supply out of the wells, but that when you get that, you don't have a negative impact to local surface and groundwater. So that's what we're testing out there. The next comment had to do with.
So before
Sorry.
you move on to that,
Yeah.
let's just kind of resolve that. I mean, what you said makes sense. Marty, you want to chime in on that, or?
The reason I included a comment on that is because once an order of conditions is issued by the commission, that's a record plan. I wanted to make sure that all the resource areas are shown on the record plan, so that it's not legally set for 3 years, which would have implications to the actual project itself.
So you're kind of saying if it's locked in, it's locked in for everything, not just this. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay,
I just want to
so
make
then-
sure I just want to make sure the plans is,
Okay.
if they don't want to include the Zone A, we can state in the order of conditions that a Zone A exists on the site.
And is not identified on this plan.
Right, it's not
Kind of type
identified
thing.
on the plan, and then it's legally set. that there's-
Okay.
Unless they appeal it.
Michael, you all right with that?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. All right, we can move to the next one. Go ahead.
Okay, sorry. There was a note added to the plan about the additional resource areas on the site, because as we talked about in the other hearing, the original ANRAD was for bordering vegetated wetlands, the end of bordering vegetated wetlands. And of course, we have bank land underwater, BLSF on the site as well. So those resources are shown as best we can. Bank is one of the ones that we're still working with, as Marty knows, trying to go back in, and that also has to do with where the Zone A would be, identifying the bank of those streams that are deep into the wetlands. And that's something that we still have yet to do. We have to finish that up.
Okay.
Okay. The next is the one that I started out with, that the gauges and piezometers be installed by hand, which we are doing, and that the piezometer not be put into the vernal pool. The other part of this was that there be monitoring, the well be installed and monitored after vernal pool breeding season. At the time we started talking about this, we were just getting ready for big night and for movement towards the vernal pool. We've had the migration, we've had the egg laying at this point. And so we are moving that piezometer staff gauge outside of the vernal pool, but I would still like to see, by putting it just outside the wetland, whether or not the groundwater level in that area of that vernal pool is affected. Because if it is, we have to turn off the pump test. So it's important to know that we're not having an effect on that vernal pool.
Okay.
The next comment 4 had to do with alteration of vegetation. And as I explained, it's going to be, hand driven, very small tube piezometers in the wetlands. So there's really very little impact in wetlands. We don't have to go cutting a path through a vegetation or anything to get in there. The next comment, number 6, had to do with the added BMPs onto the discharge end of the pipe. And we've agreed to add a line of 12-inch diameter compost tubes down gradient of the discharge crib, which will also have not just the straw bales, but filter fabric and rock around the outside of the crib on top of the filter fabric. The pump test was approved by the DEP, and actually on the plan, Susan, when she stamped it, she cited that on the plan also, giving the application number for the pump test. We did revise the plan, number 8, we did revise the plan to move the piezometer outside of the vernal pool, but we did not go 25 feet away. And I just want to make that clear. I really think we want to get as close to the edge of the wetland as we can, not go putting it off into the upland, far into the upland buffer zone, because I want to know what's happening in that wetland system when we have the pump test running. And then the last was pump test restriction not between February 15th and June 1st. And as I say here, I disagree with that. I think the point is to measure the potential drawdown during the relevant times. And so this is when the vernal pool is flooded. It doesn't do any good to go out there in the middle of the summer when the water's down in the vernal pool. I want to see that interaction between groundwater and surface water. I want to see if groundwater pumping from a bedrock well is affecting not just shallow groundwater, but pulling the surface water down as well. And that's the purpose of monitoring this with a staff gauge as well as with a piezometer. So those are my responses to I think it was just the 9 comments. Those are my responses to the comments. So Marty, I don't know whether you want to weigh in on any of those.
I think the last one is what is really the only one that, I'll leave it to Marty, but I think the last one's probably the only issue. Marty, would you agree? Or?
I mean, we can consider this. I mean, right now the water is down in that pool. So, and if we don't get any rain, which I think we're going to get some rain this weekend or Thursday, which would be helpful. By the time they do the pump test, there may not be water in that pool. Anyways, so I think that, the pool probably represents groundwater levels. So that if they do the pump test in May or June and there's no water in the pool, then they'll have to determine that the effects on the pool based on their pump test and their measurement of groundwater. So, I think that by the time the order is issued and the 2-week appeal period's gone, then you're going to be well into June anyways. So
Yeah, I was about to say, I think this might become a moot point anyway.
yeah, and the
Because it
pool's
sounds
probably
like
going
we're going to be back
probably
at best
dry.
on May 11th. And then if there's 21 days to issue after that, we're going to be past
Mhm.
June 1st anyway.
So that's kind of something that we don't even need to discuss anymore. So.
Yeah, I wrote this letter quite a while ago, hoping that we were out there now doing the pump test, and it just hasn't worked out that way.
Believe me, I understand. I got a question on the pump test, and this is kind of a layman's question. How much water are we talking about pumping out of the ground? What are the parameters, like, I guess gallons per minute or whatever per well? I mean, I think that's kind of something that everybody would be interested in hearing is how much water are we pumping out of the ground in this 48-hour test? And what exactly is this going to prove to, make this project go forward, possibly using wells or, possibly having to go down the road of town water? I think that that's something that everybody would be pretty interested in hearing. So maybe you can kind of elaborate on that. And if you can, I guess I understand, but that's something I'm interested in hearing. I can tell you that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I can bring the numbers back to you next time. Susan has worked on this. She's unfortunately not on the call tonight. The general setup is to try to stress test the wells to see what happens if you pump, one individually, two or three in tandem, and see what happens to not only to the wetlands and the vernal pool, but see what happens to the other wells. And that tells you what the production level is from the well. I don't know the horsepower pumps that Susan's putting in right now. I don't know how many gallons per minute she's proposing to pump during this test, but I can get that information for you and bring it back.
I think that's something that the board and the residents would like to hear. Just so we can kind of, formulate an opinion in our mind of, I mean, you are right next to the water department. I mean, the water department, the reservoir. I mean, in my opinion, it would be the same aquifer that you would be tapping into as the town of Rockland aquifer. So essentially you would be, not you personally, but you would be pumping water from, essentially the reservoir. I mean, that's kind of what my opinion is, and that's kind of what I've heard many residents state. And is this an easy way around, not hooking up to, municipal water? I'm not saying there's any, malice here and you guys are trying to do whatever, but I mean, essentially you're right next to our reservoir and you're going to pump water out of the same aquifer that the reservoir is hooked to. So, I mean, it sounds to me like, it's kind of a workaround. I guess that's not really a conservation issue. I guess that's more of a Rockland Water Department issue, but I just kind of wanted to offer that opinion, that, you're kind of taking Rockland water, but not paying for it. That's, you know what? I mean, I have no other way to say it. Do you have an opinion on that, or?
I
mean,
have
I'm
just
sure that you don't, but.
I have a quick observation on that.
Okay, go ahead,
I
please.
know that the project proponents have been talking to the Abington Rockland Water District about supplying water to this site. And I know that the wells and the pump tests are an alternative. I do not believe they are the preferred alternative. I think the preferred alternative is to hook up the same way the septic system wasn't the preferred alternative, and there were test pits done to see whether or not a septic system could be put out here.
Right.
But going on municipal sewer system and going on the water district water is the preferred route. But as part of the due diligence for this project, mainly for the banks, to show the banks that there's something viable here,
Right.
you have to show that you have a water source. And so this is one way to show that you have a water source.
Okay. Again, I'm not questioning your motives. Let's just say I wanted to bring that up because I know that other people probably on this call, and maybe some that aren't, are probably thinking that. So I just wanted to kind of put that out there. How's that sound?
That's fine. Yeah. And I think from a technical standpoint, if this is a zone A to the water district, I think your point is well taken about the water's coming from the same source.
I would, I'd obviously agree with that. I said that. So, but if you could have those numbers, I think that would be helpful for us.
I think I have the numbers. They were included. I could be wrong, but the actual permit from DEP and
Okay.
describes the 3 wells and the gallons per minute proposed pump rate.
Okay, great. That's perfect.
So well 1 is 11.8 gallons per minute. Well 2 is 17.1 gallons per minute. And then well 3 is 20 gallons per minute. The rate is the requested withdrawal rate based on Title V design flows is 37,730 gallons per day based on 340. I mean, the maximum available withdrawal for the combined wells is 52,807 and 61,566 gallons per day. So,
Okay.
yeah,
Okay. All right, well, let's see how this pump test plays out.
Doug,
Yes, yes,
I have a question for Marty.
sure, go ahead.
As of the end of last week, of course, this part of Massachusetts has just gone back into drought status. How does this affect these pump tests? I mean, are they going to be accurate?
yes, because they're measuring the groundwater, so. And the impacts on the pumping on the groundwater, so depending on where the groundwater is at any given day, they measure the effects of the pumping on that groundwater by, vertical feet. So if the groundwater is high, they'll measure the vertical feet from that point. If it's lower, then they'll measure it from that point, basically, simply stated.
I mean, I think the pump test is, just a test. I think the actual use of the wells might be a different issue. And I think that's kind of the road that you're kind of taking, Lorraine, and believe me, I agree with you. A test is just a test. It's, it's just a matter of getting the data and moving on from there, so.
Right.
Um,
The test will feed into an application under the Water Management Act for a water withdrawal permit for this site.
I do have a question. When you do the pump test, will there be any chemical testing of the groundwater for drinkability? Potability?
Potability, I mean, typically we do. I don't know for sure what Susan has planned on this one. I can find out though.
And I mean, I would think that if the groundwater was impacted, then it would not be a source of drinking water.
Correct. Oh,
It's
like negative, like a negative impact right now.
Contamination.
There were investigations about groundwater contamination out there earlier that Conoco did as part of the 21E when it started the process. But it's a good point because I think, typically we would pull samples as we're doing the pump test to try to find out, as you stress the wells, is it changing what the rock bearing strata is giving you as far as water quality is concerned?
Yeah, and it's a bedrock well. These are bedrock wells,
They're
right?
bedrock wells.
So did Conoco install bedrock wells in their 21E to analyze the water?
Yeah, I don't know. I'll have to go back and look at that.
Well, I think that's a very good point that Marty brings up, that the water should be tested, especially considering the letter that everybody in the town of
Yeah,
Rockland
right.
recently received.
Actually,
Hate
I'm
to-
looking at the DEP. They are going to be testing it.
Okay, good, because that's actually a very good point, Marty, because we're all wondering about that, so.
Yeah.
Okay, so Marty, you still have stuff to review as far as the 48-hour test. I know that because I saw your response.
Well, I would recommend to the commission to keep the hearing open so that, we can take a look at everything.
Yep. Yep, so, does anybody in the audience have any, actually, let me start with the board. Does anybody on the board have any questions as far as the pump test goes? Not the project, just the pump test. I'll go around to make sure I got everybody. Ron?
No, they don't be using those pumps pumping to our wells, because they suck it out,
Well, that's,
you know,
I mean, this is just a test though, so.
because that time, what people gotta find out, they know what there is to do right now.
Yeah.
And they put theirs in the second eyes, they said, wait, our numbers are changing, right?
That's the reason they're doing the test.
Yeah.
I don't have any questions. Virginia has abstained. Lorraine, do you have any questions as far as the pump test goes?
I already asked my question and
Okay,
Marty
just making sure you don't have any more, that's all, because I can't see you.
Okay,
So does anybody in the audience have any questions?
I do.
And that's Mary. I can tell that voice from a mile away. Go ahead, Mary.
Yeah, I want to thank Marty for asking most of my questions. But I have a
Yep.
couple in terms of where are you depositing this water once you do your test?
We're running it along that line that I showed on the plan, and it gets discharged in an upland area outside of the zone of immediate zone of contribution of the wells.
Okay, but you're not testing it for any chemical contamination?
Well, I think they
I
are.
think Marty just said we are doing testing, so
Yep.
yes.
Okay. Are you testing for PFAS?
Yes.
Good. How deep are you going down to draw this water? What is your depth?
I
How many
don't
feet?
know the depth of the
100
well.
feet,
off the top of
400
my head.
feet?
Marty, was
We
that part of the table that we put into the NOI? I don't have that in front of me.
Part of, I'm looking at the DEP permit.
Yeah,
Attachment on it. Talks about the pump rate and, notify DEP, and talks about the discharge location, and then also, state certified lab needs to be used for analysis of drinking water, should be performed in all water quality testing. It talks about what to test for. There's no table in it.
okay.
No.
So I can
So-
find that out, Mary, because obviously they have to set the pumps at certain elevation in the wells.
Right,
Yeah,
so
if
would
we
there
could
be
find that out, that'd be great.
different depths for each wellhead?
I don't know, so I can't answer that.
Another question is, I didn't get the numbers for well number 3, what your volume would be per minute? Your allowable volume per minute.
I think that was 20 gallons a minute.
Yep,
Okay.
Marty, was that what
Right.
came up, Marty?
right.
Yep.
Pump test withdrawal rates. 20, and relative to Mary's question about Mike, you had mentioned they're gonna be nested wells?
You
Different,
mean the piezometer?
Nope. Oh, yeah, wait a minute.
yeah, the wells are gonna use to monitor the groundwater. You mentioned they're gonna be nested?
Well, it's a staff gauge piezometer nesting.
Okay,
I
so
just
just
want-
one well, one piezometer.
And
And,
one staff gauge.
Okay, and you don't know the screen depth of the piezometer?
I don't know.
Can we have that for the May 11th meeting, Michael, please?
Sure.
Thank you. Mary?
And you do know that this is not a typical spring here. It's been kind of a dry spring.
Yep.
So groundwater tables may be lower than usual.
Yep.
Well, the groundwater, I think that Marty's already addressed that it's really a point in time. It's not a matter of high or low or, it's wherever the groundwater is at that particular day, how much it draws down that particular day or that 48 hours. So it really wouldn't matter whether it's high or low or, average.
Is there
Marty?
a piezometer near the Ben Man Brook, which is a perennial stream? Are you going to be looking at that stream to see if it goes down?
No, we're putting the piezometers in close by in the wetland system. We're not going off-site into Ben Man Brook.
Ben Man Brook runs through the site.
Yeah, it's not offsite.
No, we're not going out into Ben Man Brook. That's not the proposal.
Okay,
Is that all you got, Barry?
for now.
Okay.
I do want a
Anybody?
copy of all of this, though.
Okay. Well, of course you can have that, Mary.
What the heck is
So
that?
the
Anybody
piezometer
else?
depth is about 4 to 5 feet below grade. I just found that for you.
Thank you.
3/4 inch to 1 inch diameter driven steel pipe piezometers.
What?
So the only thing we need is the depth of the wells.
Yeah.
And I think and, you know, Marty already dug up the pump flow, but you might as well include that for our May 11th meeting.
Yeah, all that information is in the notice of intent,
Okay,
so.
just, you know,
Mary
just
gets
so
a
if the
copy of
question
that,
gets, yeah, just so if the question gets asked again, we can
Yeah.
answer it. You were gonna say something?
I just have a question just to clarify about the testing before the pump test actually happens. Will that testing take place prior to the pump test happening, or is that going to take place after the pump test? When will we have the results back is the question.
Who's speaking?
This is
Yeah,
Mike.
Doug, we need to coordinate this a little bit better. This is getting
Yeah.
a little crazy.
Yeah, who?
So, Michael, I need your name and address.
Yeah, that's where I'm going with this.
719 Hingham Street.
Thank you.
The full
If I can-
name?
Mike Gentleman.
Thank you.
If I can answer the question,
Please do.
yes, as a part of this approval process, initial water quality testing for secondary contaminants and volatile organic compounds is required from each well. Collect these required testing parameters during the step drawdown test for the well and submit the results on the approved state forms to DEP for review prior to commencement of the pumping test.
Thank you.
Okay. Does anybody else have any questions?
If you want to speak, can you raise your hand?
Yep. And we need a name and address when you do that, please. Okay, I guess that's it.
Hello.
Oh, who's this? I love these Zoom meetings. Who's this speaking?
George Anderson.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. Oh, boy.
Oh, boy. Oh, we all know where you live, so we don't need your address. Go ahead, George.
Hey, look it. I'm trying to find out something.
You
I'm
are?
not sure. I don't know where this property actually is. Is it the old Joe Smith's junkyard in back of Home Depot?
Well, George, you're kind of on the wrong hearing because this is the well test.
And wait a minute,
Should've
which
asked
one is
that-
this?
You really should have asked that question on the previous hearing. which was
Oh,
for the
okay. I missed
project.
it. All right.
Yeah,
I
well,
missed it.
Yeah, well, yeah.
All right. I don't know
you
which one this one is then. All right.
Well, this is just for the well test, but to answer your question, it's the property behind Home Depot. Does that answer your question?
That's it. That's what, is it just the property behind Home Depot?
Yep.
I'm not exactly sure what that entails. My question is this: I know 30 years ago, when I was on the commission, I said, we had a problem down there because somebody built a road that was just off of Pond Street, right in back of where Home Depot is now.
That's
Okay.
their access road.
Now, are you filling that whole wetlands in? And you want to build something on it?
George, we're kind of going off the rails here. Honestly, we can't have this discussion because that was for the previous hearing. I wish you were on for that hearing, but you weren't. We're talking strictly about a water pump test at this point.
Okay.
But that access road, yes, that road is the access for this project. I'll stop there. Okay?
Okay, that's fine.
Thank you, George.
Yep.
Does anybody else in the audience have any questions? And actually, let me just stop here. Because I can't read the comments that people are typing, I just see blurbs plopping across the screen for about, 1 second. Please keep in mind, anything that you type into this forum is public record. but it's not being considered by the commission. You're welcome to speak. That's the reason I open up the floor for people to speak. But again, anything that you put in that forum is public record and it stays there forever. So just to let everybody know that. Okay, does anybody in the audience have any questions on the 48-hour pump test?
Doug, I'm not seeing any other hands raised or any hands raised whatsoever.
Okay, motion to continue this hearing to May 11th. Ron,
Yes.
Second,
Lorraine,
second.
okay. All right, that's unanimous. Moving on. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
We'll see you on the 11th.
Okay.
Okay, so now we have Dyer Street. Unfortunately, anybody who's here for Dyer Street, they have requested a continuance to, is it our May 11th hearing or did they go further out than that?
May 11th.
Okay. So the, both Dyer Street notices have been moved to the May 11th hearing. So for anybody who's on the call for that, it's been moved to the May 11th hearing at 7 o'clock. And that's it for our agenda.
Doug, we have two other things to talk about that are on, not under projects, but the Monahan Rink and then the McCarthy Farm.
Okay. Oh, I forgot about the McCarthy Farm. Okay. I'm assuming that Marty will provide a Moynihan Rink update.
Sure. Actually, we were on site yesterday to make sure that the vernal pools down gradient of the crossing in particular, the water quality is still good, which it is. And we did observe a breeding in the up gradient vernal pool, but not the down gradient. Not to say there isn't any in there. We just haven't looked at it comprehensively. We've been monitoring migration of species across the road. Haven't found any, which is good. So the site right now is stable, and the down gradient vernal pool is not being affected from silt or sediment in the water column. So we're planning on, predicted rain Thursday night, Friday. We'll either be on site Friday afternoon or Monday morning first thing, depending on the prediction tomorrow. We're going to listen to the weather forecast tomorrow and then head out there. So.
And they'll be issuing their rain report anyway.
Yes, they've been doing that. Yep. And there was reported some trees being cut out there. We were aware of that. They actually did a turtle sweep prior to cutting down the few trees that they needed to cut down. So LEC was on site, did the turtle sweep. We looked at the area that they were going to cut. We made sure it was in the permitted limit of work, and it was. So I think right now the developer realizes the importance of staying on top of things and communicating. So far, so good.
Okay. All right. So that's that.
Can I ask a question, Mr. Chairman?
Who's this?
Mike Bromberg.
Oh, I didn't recognize your voice, Mike. Yes,
I
go ahead.
don't know how to raise my hand on this yet. Someday I'll learn, I guess, but
Neither do I, so go ahead.
on the tree cutting, if I could ask, in the adjustment of the silt fence, how did that, how in the middle of the project can they move the silt fence over, 5 or 6 feet and cut trees down? In other words, the erosion control was in place and approved, and then all of a sudden they can move the erosion control and cut trees down. So
All I can say, Mr. Chair, is that we met in the field on that, and based on, the permit plans and what they needed to do and any impacts of on wetlands we looked at. So if the erosion controls needed to be adjusted to take those trees down, then, you know, we felt that it was
Warranted.
and yeah. So it wasn't, you know, there was no further impacts of wetlands. So, I mean, we talked to them about it.
Yep.
I mean, these
I
things
know,
happen. These things happen when during construction projects, you know, we have to take a look at things like that. So,
I know you guys are on site, Marty. We,
Yep.
you know, we discussed that.
So does this have anything to do without, was it not surveyed properly in the first place, or?
I don't really have an answer for that, Mike.
Is it in the buffer zone?
I'm sure if there were erosion controls, it was in the buffer zone.
Well, the erosion controls start at the Parkway, come all the way through for turtle barrier. It's usually the same silt fence.
The bottom line is, Mike, is whatever happened out there, Beta Group looked at it and it's fine.
Okay, I thought if there was a change of plans, it had to come back to the commission.
The bottom line is I had them go check it. It's fine.
Okay. Could I ask you one more question on that then, if I could?
Okay.
I don't see a bridge, but there's supposed to be a bridge, or is that kind of, because they ran right across the wetland. And they got all their manholes and pipes and stuff like that in there. But isn't there supposed to be bridges of some sort?
I can't answer that. Marty, you gotta.
well, I mean, they're in the
Down the road.
process of, they're in the process of constructing the crossing. So, you know, they got to get their utilities in, and there's three, I guess, three sections,
Yeah.
the turtle crossings. So they have to get all the base done, and, you know, the utilities, and, you know, they will, you know,
So they'll come back and do it.
construction process, you know.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, they'll build them.
Excellent, thank you.
Can I ask a question?
If I said no, you're gonna ask it anyway, right?
Right.
So go ahead.
It's the turtle bridges. I thought there was supposed to be 5 turtle bridges on these crossings, and they're supposed to be graded bridges so that light comes through. When do they plan on starting those?
I mean, the applicant's not on the
Oh,
call there.
okay.
I mean, it's not even a hearing. We really probably shouldn't even be discussing this. It was more of just an update of the project. But we can certainly ask that question if you
I'd
like.
appreciate it if you would.
So what was that question exactly again? You're supposed to have
The
bridge-
5 turtle crossing bridges,
right.
wildlife bridges. They're
got that
supposed to be
part.
graded.
They're
yeah.
supposed to be graded.
So that light is going through. You know, how you have the old fashioned
Yep.
bridges over waterways that open up, and they had the grates.
Yep. Okay. We will ask that question of the applicant.
Thank you.
Okay, so like I said, the Moynihan Rink update is not a hearing, and you know, we're kind of on the borderline of having a hearing, so that's about it. McCarthy Farm is an interesting one. This is really just a discussion with the board. So this is a piece of property up off of Beach Hill. The only way I can describe it, this might be a little rude, but this is the only way that I know of the property. It's the Egg Lady's property. Does everybody know what I'm talking about? So she's the one who has the sign out front, eggs for sale on when you go down Beach Hill. Well, that's the property I'm talking about. So anyway, I believe it's about 20 acres. I can get the board all the details. I got something from the town administrator. I guess there's maybe in the I'm not even sure how this came about, but maybe in the sale documents. I don't know if there's a will involved in this. I don't really know the details, but bottom line is there's 20 acres of land there, and the McCarthy farm, whoever owned the farm, gave the town the first right of refusal to buy the property. So of course, Tommy Hastings, you know, famous Tommy Hastings, who also owns Dyer Street, he has a purchase and sale on the property for about $1 million. But the town has the first right of refusal to buy the property for $1 million. So the town administrator just wants opinions from each board whether the town should try to buy the property or not. I don't know if the Conservation Commission should even weigh in on this. Because for the board to weigh in on this, we would have to have our consultant go out and evaluate the property. You know, blah, blah, blah. That's really all I have to say on that. That's, I don't really, you know, he just wants an opinion.
Mr.
Somebody
Chairman,
say something?
Donald Can.
Hey, Donald, how you doing?
May I give you a little more background?
I would certainly appreciate that. I'm sure you can see I'm struggling here.
Yeah. The McCarthy Farm is it qualifies under Chapter 61A as agricultural land, and that means they get a special tax break when they decide that they're going to go out of that chapter. They required to give the town first refusal and then pay a certain amount of back taxes. As you may know, this land touches two towns, Whitman and Hanson.
Yep.
And as you may also know, that the Open Space Committee has been trying for many years, and we've had some success in creating an emerald necklace around the town of Rockland with trails and so forth. In fact, our trails are well known. You can Google Rockland Trails and Rockland Rail Trail as well, Town Forest as well, and you'll find people have been here and have commented, and it's on the state websites, as well as nonprofit websites. So we're interested in the town to exercise that first refusal. There's about 36 acres in the farm. There's some wetland, there's a pond, and some other things. There's two streams that cross it. And it abuts other land that's in conservation. There's a 10-acre piece of conservation land that abuts between the farm and Whitman. And it also is attached to the former Girl Scout camp that was donated to Whitman, which exists in quite a bit of it in Rockland, and there are trails there. So it links up with other conservation land, other trails, and we're trying very hard to see if we can raise money to acquire this as part of our open space plan. And that's in a nutshell, but I'll answer questions. And there are other members of the Open Space Committee, I think, that have come into this meeting. So if they have some comments, and if you indulge them, it would be fine with me. So, question.
Well, I'm glad you attended, because I didn't really get a clear view when I questioned what this was really all about. I didn't really get a clear answer on what exactly is, expected of the Conservation Commission.
Yeah.
On this.
By the way, I believe the conservation, under the rules of Chapter 61A, they have to send a certified a letter to the Conservation Commission, the Planning Board, of course, the Selectmen. So you're a required board for them to respond to.
Okay. I mean, again, for the actual commission to have an opinion on this, I think we probably have to evaluate the property, but I mean, we could certainly defer to the Open Space Committee on this too. I mean, if anybody is on from the Open Space Committee and wants to comment, feel free. I mean, this is kind of an open forum. It is on the agenda
Hi, Mr. Chairman, I could add on a few things if you don't mind. Mike Bromberg again. So of this property, it's almost $1 million, but that included 2 properties, and which would almost be 40 acres. We're only going after the one property of 36 acres. We're meeting with the CPA, and we have, to discuss CPA money purchasing this. I think the big thing for the Concom at some point is whether they would accept it, because it has to be protected in perpetuity. If it's purchased by the town under 61A, I believe. So I believe that's the way it works. So there's state grants that we can get. There's one grant that looks pretty promising, especially because we're abutting 2 different towns. We can get up to $400,000 on that, use some CPA money. And, I think the town could benefit by not, sometimes it costs the town money to develop land, and it's better for the town to purchase it and keep it and not have, hundreds of kids going into schools and buses and police and fire and whatnot, and water and sewer. So I think it would be a good purchase for the town. It's right up what we've been doing. We did it with the golf course, the Rockland Golf Course. We got the same grant. Because there was only 63 61A projects in Rockland, the golf course, the Delphi farm, and this farm. And so we've had our eye on this for a long time. And, we can do all the footwork for you guys. So whatever you need, but I'd like to encourage you to, move forward to, I know you're kind of restricted tonight, but to move forward and have an interest in the town buying this. It will go into the Conservation Commission's jurisdiction.
I mean, we certainly, I'm speaking for myself, but I probably speak for the entire board. We certainly wouldn't have a problem taking it. I do agree with you as far as a lot of your points as far as taxing the town, water, sewer, schools, fire, police, etc. Like I said, personally, I would agree with you, but the board can speak for itself. But I would think the board would support that.
I would chime in with that too, yes, definitely.
Leave it open space.
Yep.
Yeah.
So Lorraine, do you have a?
Oh, I fully support it. And also, if you want to check into maybe some grants that MACC might have available, that's a good resource as well. They do offer some grants for protecting wetlands and land like that.
Well, here's what I propose. Because Lorraine is so involved in the MACC, this is going to be her project for the Conservation Commission. And I believe the board will support it. I think we've already said that, but you guys can work with Lorraine a little bit on this one. Lorraine, you have an issue with that?
Lorraine, Donald can, may I speak? If you can get in touch with me, either my telephone number, which is public, and email or whatever, we would really appreciate getting the lowdown on is it MACC?
Yep.
MACC, they do have a couple of grants available right now, but I think you have to apply by May. I was just on the site. I couldn't log in though, but I did see that they had a couple of grants available for this type of function that you'd want to, preserve or keep or upgrade. Like they have one for parks if you wanted to, upgrade a park, or you just have to look into see what's available at the time.
Okay.
And I know there's 2 available now.
I think that would be a good idea, Donald, is for
Yep.
You to work.
And by
with
the
Lorraine.
way, this type of project has been featured in at least 4 planning documents, the 1999 master plan and then the open space plan and the current master plan and the current open space and recreation plan. acquiring open space in the town of Rockland was right up at the top.
Well, I think you have the board's answer.
Thank you very much.
Excellent, thank you.
And I think you guys should work with Lorraine. She's really good at handling the MACC stuff and, you know, and other things. So, as long as Lorraine's up for that, I think that that's going to be a good fit.
Thank you, Lorraine.
Oh, you're welcome. Anytime.
Okay. So, thank
And thanks
God,
to the Conservation Commission too.
thank God that Donald and Mike attended the meeting for the McCarthy Farm thing, because I had no idea what it was about. So that's a plus. Anyway, moving on. All right, so the only thing left on the agenda is the minutes and the bills. So I'm gonna make a motion to pay all the bills except for the secretary bill, which somebody else on the board can make a motion for that.
I make a
Make a
motion.
motion to pay the bills.
Okay. Okay, that's seconded by Ron. And, you know, go from there. The minutes, we're gonna table the minutes until our next meeting, so all the members have a chance to review them. And then at our May 11th meeting, that's when we'll approve the minutes. Okay,
Sounds good to me.
anything else, board members? Everybody good?
Yeah.
Yeah, motion to adjourn.
Okay, fairly good meeting, everybody. Motion to adjourn,
Second.
Ron, seconding. Okay, thank you. Have a good night.